Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, the official translation of One Piece chapter 1005 is out. You guys know how we do the video. Talk about the official translation compared to the fan translation, note any difference, talk about literally anything at all, and then round up the video with comments from you guys. So I'm sure some people noticed that last week I didn't upload a comments video. You would know if you follow me on Twitter. It's not really important if that's not your platform, but there was a huge winter storm that basically ravaged Texas for about a week, and I didn't have power for 5 days. So that's why the comments video last week didn't happen. I hope that wasn't a big deal, but I decided to make theories. Joeboy Theories makes theories rather than the comments video a week afterwards. Even though pretty much any video I make, whether it be the chapter reaction or talking about comments, is just chock full of theories. But it's like not the same as a theory video, you guys know. Also, while we're here, if you guys enjoyed the chapter thumbnail and the artwork this week, beautiful Robin piece, REVUJO totally outdid himself. The print for that will be available, link in the description. I want a thumbs up from everybody who really enjoyed REVUJO'S artwork this week, as well as if you just liked the comments video. Let me know that you liked the comments video. Also, over 50% of you who watch my video are not subscribed. What's up with that, dude? Well, yeah, let's briefly talk about the differences in translation. There's not too many this week. It's pretty much nitpicking. I will say, though, that, and I don't feel like this every single week, the official translation I think was probably better than the fan translation. With the exception of how they translated Robin's line. I like the fan translation more. I don't know what is more accurate, but I like the fan translation more when she said that, "Is that your last words?" as opposed to last will. Grammatically, I can see why Steven chose what he did if it's ambiguous, but I personally, and I may be wrong, personally, I've never heard anyone say, "Is that your last will?" At least in common vernacular. But as an insult, I have never seen it, and so it didn't resonate as much. But I do criticize Steven a lot, so I do want to take a moment to at least appreciate the fact that he takes the time, sometimes even altering the translation, to ensure that we understand what is going on. And sometimes it's legitimately helpful. And I think that here, this difference in translation is a pretty good example of that. In the chapter, in the fan translation, they were talking about the cyborg animals, the Marys, and the fan translation suggested that there was like one human to each of these cyborgs. My father's army has a scouting unit called the Marys. This is one of their cyborgs. They usually wander aimlessly around the island. Everything they see is seen by their human counterparts. My first impression, just because of the way that this was worded, is that they're like a pair. Each of the cyborg animals with their counterpart. The official instead translated it as, "They wander around the island without a purpose, but they share their eyesight with the human Marys, plural." It's amazing how changing or removing one word affects how you might perceive the translation. But anyway, the point is that it seems likely to me, and also based on the official translation, that the people who wear the mask can share a vision with anybody else who wears a mask, cyborg or human, anybody. Although, while we're here, I just have this question, right? This is one of those things where maybe you're thinking a little bit too much about what's going on and Oda doesn't want you to. But why the heck are these cyborgs literally wandering aimlessly around Onigashima? Was this something intentional on Oda's part or not? Is this kind of, I mean, if you're trying to make some sort of purpose out of this, it would almost suggest to me that Kaido doesn't trust his own subordinates, which when you look at the Flying Six and how he builds his crew, kind of makes some sense. So back at Whole Cake Island, we saw CP0 infiltrate Big Mom's circle. We saw CP0 also infiltrate Morgan's. And so with Big Mom, she's not necessarily using her powers for the purpose of spying on everybody. She might to some extent, but in reality, she just loves giving life. She loves to bring her island to life. So, but when Kaido is building these cyborgs specifically for this purpose, and then letting them loose on where he lives, it seems so much more purposeful. Like he really is keeping an eye on his entire crew. Anybody who might be a traitor, anybody who might be looking for poneglyphs or doing something shady. It's a very interesting detail to me. If Oda did this on purpose, man, this is just another reason to appreciate how much he cares about the series. Because you don't include a little detail like this to expound upon a character and their mindset, without even drawing attention to it, without being, incredible. And in this case, even though Oda didn't directly say it, it's just sort of a weird mystery, it does make some sense. Or maybe, it's Queen that created these cyborgs and he's just peeping on people, I have seen several very attractive beast pirates. So the mechanical animals are wandering aimlessly, putting aimlessly here in quotations. But yeah, let's get into the comments. And why the heck not, let's start with Queen. The first time reading the chapter, I kinda got curious as to where Queen was, specifically learning about the cyborgs and Marys. But when rereading and a lot of squinting at page 7, I'm convinced Queen is ambiguously hidden. Any concerns for Tama? I've been on the record about this. I have been, and will continue to be, very concerned about Tama. Do I think she's gonna die? No. But because of her powers and the setup of Queen trying to figure out what the hell's going on, it sets Queen on a path to eventually interact with Tama, kind of in the same way that King has been, or earlier at least in this fight, was targeting Momonosuke. I think Tama will be considered of equal importance because of her abilities. And this has been set up even from the very beginning of this arc when Hold'em got a hold of Tama. Clearly her powers are of interest to the Beast Pirates. Even more so now that she's literally stealing Smile users. I personally think that Oda has something in mind for the Beast Pirates to see her powers and have an idea of how they want to use it. And we might see this if Tama is ever captured. Some people have even been floating the idea, I'm not sure if I'm sold on this yet, but it's interesting that there's a connection between Tama's abilities and Zunisha when we saw her being controlled by Momonosuke and Zou. I guess the way that you would rationalize this is that somebody in the distant past had the Kibidango fruit, tamed Zunisha, and then gave Zunisha a command that she is compelled to follow. For instance, if a Kozuki demands something of you or asks you to do something, then you must do it. And they are compelled to follow what you ask them to do because they want to. Which honestly seems like a bit of a weird infringement on free will. Anyway, back to Queen. My expectation from beforehand was that Drake was supposed to be fighting Queen, but we see Drake in this chapter appears to be fighting Appu, and Queen is nowhere. So, you know, maybe Queen is looking at Chopper at the moment, or maybe Queen is on a crash course with Tama. The fact that Oda didn't include it, I imagine, suggests that we're in for maybe a bit of a surprise. Next comment, Sanji vs. Jack is basically inevitable right now. Both are going to the same place. To be quite honest with you, and I thought about this in the couple days since I first read the chapter, you know, I would feel stronger about this, more definitive, if Oda wasn't writing the story. I mean, let's be real here, right? In the last chapter, the chapter before last, Oda brought in that detail of Black Maria after she deals with Sanji and maybe Robin, she's gonna go and deal with the Scabbards. And, like, what's the point of that in the story? Why did Oda include that detail about Black Maria being interested in the Scabbards and wait till later to have Jack say, nah, I'm gonna do it? It's because Oda is a troll. And also, Oda doesn't want us to know what's going to happen. I feel like with Sanji in particular, Oda seems to be saving who it is that he's going to be matched up with, or at least before now. It's like, well, Sanji fought with Page 1, maybe he's gonna fight Page 1 in Onigashima. Oh, he has a clash with King, maybe they both fly, they have fire abilities. No, okay, well, Sanji might have to fight Black Maria. No, okay, well now Jack and Sanji are heading to the same place, they have to fight, right? And, you know, you're dealing with Oda. So there's a little part of me that still has at least see some possibility that Sanji ends up fighting Queen. Queen already has a connection with the Vinsmoke family. He specializes in technology, and this is going to be the arc which is really going to debut Sanji in his raid suit. They're both pervy, they have similar characters, I guess, except for they're contrasted on polar opposites, where Sanji's the kind guy, the nice guy, and Queen takes all these similar tropes but is in love with torture. And another good contrast here, when Sanji isn't being a doofus, he's kind of suave, where Queen doesn't really have that energy at all. From a pure thematic standpoint, Queen makes absurd more sense to me than Jack. But obviously here I'm fighting what you said in your comment. They're going to the same place. Fighting seems inevitable. So if you were to still believe this, if you choose to, if that appeals to you at all, maybe the Scabbards still have some fight left in them. And we can have a cool moment where Sanji goes to go rescue the Scabbards, but they don't need rescuing. And let's be real here, there's at least some small chance that Sanji doesn't know where the treasury room is. Even if he knows that if they're on the second floor, he might get lost. Which I know is Zoro's thing, but this is an unfamiliar castle. Jack, injured as he is, fighting against injured opponents, the Scabbards, with people that have a lot at stake in that fight, Nekomamushi and Inuarashi, that makes sense. If you ask me, Jack appears to be far more injured than Sanji is. Oda made a point of including a little bubble of Jack wheezing when we saw him in the last chapter. Meanwhile, I think personally that Sanji is fine. Jack even says don't underestimate the Scabbards. Someone like Black Maria couldn't beat them, even as they are mortally injured. That reads to me as a clue that the Scabbards might still fight in the arc. They're still alive enough to contribute in some way, and against somebody like Jack, who is maybe not equally injured but close, that works. But yeah, obviously we'll find out at some point in time. I just wanted to say this because I feel really jerked around when it comes to Sanji's fights, and I really do believe that, I would take a Jack fight. I said that in my first reaction, say it now. I have no problems with it, but I like Queen more. I like King more. That's just the truth. Next comment, I don't see a lot of people talking about the room that Yamato found. I think there's someone important from the past. So yeah, a few people brought this up to me, found it intriguing that Oda decided to call this room cursed. That's what the Beast Pirates called it. It was a cursed room. There are a few spiritual aspects to Wano that I'm kind of waiting on to pay off at some point in time. This is a cursed room. We saw Big Mom destroy the sacred tree. We saw the Kokeshi dolls earlier in the story, and these all feel maybe related to me. As for what specifically though, I have no good idea. I guess I'm just kind of waiting for the moment where the spirit of the deceased people of Wano become relevant in some way in this arc. Next comment, so CP0 will definitely make a move now after knowing exactly where Nico Robin is, but they won't make a move until after the Alliance compromises Kaido's Marys. So a lot of people have connected Robin's history with CP9 with the current events, Robin's location broadcasted, and CP0 being here. Honestly, I'm surprised that this hasn't been brought up more and that the Straw Hats haven't been chased by Cypher Pole, simply because nothing has changed since Enies Lobby. They should still want Nico Robin alive, just as before. And I think that you have to believe that they would fear Nico Robin being collected by either Big Mom or Kaido. I mean, she's been called the most terrifying woman in the world. Small theory here that I've talked about before but never really emphasized. I think Nico Robin's mother, is still alive. Death was not confirmed. Oda will show it if it happened, 9 times out of 10. So the idea here is for the same reason that Cypher Pole would be interested in Robin, they captured one of the scholars of Ohara, Nico Olvia. But in my head, here's the thing. Nico Olvia never squealed. She never read any poneglyph for them or gave them any knowledge, whatever they might have been looking for. So because that didn't work, now they're looking for Robin. Not because they think that Robin will squeal, but her mother might squeal, or she might squeal, if you put the two together. See, that's the problem when you kill literally everybody a person is connected to. You have no leverage over them. And if you're wondering, I believe the same thing is true about Tom. I think Tom is alive. But anyway, I see this being part of the plot going forward. CP0 is definitely going to target Robin, just the same as Big Mom and Kaido. Knowing where she is or where she will be could be relevant. I also like your idea that the destruction of the Marys, which also seems like something that may be imminent at some point in time, is really going to play into Cypher Pole or other factions which are not yet in Wano's favor. I could definitely see that. And that would certainly explain why Oda would bring it up now. Even in the middle of what may appear to be the climactic battle of this arc, the surveillance unit, the Marys, has a role to play. Next comment, it's interesting to see how the online community seems to dislike the direction Sanji is moving towards in the story lately, in contrast to my friends and people I have met in the real world that totally seem to love it, including myself. Yo man, that's just the internet for you. Why you always angry? Oh my god, stop being angry. No need for applause, you're welcome. But seriously, this is something that I just sort of picked up over time. The internet, everybody's looking to say something in order to get interactions, talk to people, garner clout. And criticism tends to do that. Especially over-the-top criticism. Not to say that the criticism doesn't exist, but I think that it's a little overblown. Speaking from my perspective, anecdotally here, when a series stops hitting, I just stop reading. And I feel like the vast majority of the people are the same. Do I personally love this Sanji moment? I would say no. I think that it's very intelligent, but it's not cool to me. If we were to rank Sanji's decisions here based on cool factor, number 1 would have been he actually fights Black Maria. Obviously, people disagree. Number 2 would have been just taking it and dying. That's pretty cool, although you're also frustrated. And then number 3 here is crying for help and running away, regardless of the setup or what that means for Sanji's character. But it's a totally negligible aspect in my experience reading One Piece. I would only bring it up if I wanted to talk about the recent chapter and my feelings about it. If someone's trying to have an IRL conversation with me about One Piece and they're like, oh my god, that Sanji moment was so good, I'd be like, yeah, that was great. But why don't we talk about the poneglyphs? But everybody is entitled to their own opinion. We don't all like the same things. We don't all see the world in the same way. I would much rather read a story with a diverse cast of characters. Everybody is unique, with characters that I straight up dislike. Then have a series where all the characters feel very bland, and if they're cool, they're all the same. One Piece with 10 Zoros in the crew is not nearly as amazing as what we actually have. Flaws and all. Next comment, I don't think Sanji's interpretation of what Zeff taught him is a bastardization. Not all of Sanji's life and thoughts are derived from Zeff. He did have a mother, Conceptually, I do agree with what you're saying. For instance, Sanji's love of food existed before Zeff. But when it comes to Sanji, his chivalry, that is 100% derived from Zeff. We actually see Sanji when he's very young, and basically is like, hey, we should just kick this lady. And then Zeff beats him upside the head and says, no, we don't kick ladies. So Sanji, on the Baratie, after his time with the Vinsmoke, seemed perfectly fine with not kicking women. Zeff essentially brainwashed him. I actually have a similar complaint here where people phrase it in this particular way. People are looking for Sanji's character growth to be that he hits women. Lol. But it's like, you do realize that every character in this story, except for Sanji, hits women, right? We all understand that. And it's not a bad thing. Maybe this criticism exists and I don't understand it. Do people want everybody to become like Sanji? Is Sanji the bastion here of moral and ethical integrity that every character in the One Piece story should strive for? Because I think the majority of people think the exact opposite. Like, even though Sanji does it, it's not a good thing. We need to at least acknowledge that for Sanji, regardless of whether it is who he is and how he's going to be, it's a character flaw. So yeah, Sanji correcting a character flaw could be seen as potentially character growth. It quite honestly bothers me that somehow people manipulate this conversation into suggesting people, are out there to abuse women. It's like that pseudo-intellect logic that's totally devoid of common sense or the situation at hand. Nobody on the Straw Hat crew abuses women. Sanji takes that to retard level. If a woman was holding a bomb and was about to destroy the entire world, Sanji still couldn't hit her. So I like to imagine Zeff seems like a pretty reasonable guy to me for the most part, that when he imparted this knowledge onto Sanji, it was more in a normal type of setting. Like anybody else would learn this. Sanji taking it again to that next retard level then becomes a bastardization of what I imagine Zeff's, the heart of Zeff's message was. But yeah, I'm glad I got that off my chest. Now you know. One Piece is more interesting because Sanji has this character flaw, and if this is who he is, it's who he is. But let's just at least, acknowledge the truth for what it is. Next comment, there's a great theory in French about Sanji and his not hitting women. It's about family, not about chivalry. It's about having a father. It will be solved when his family issues are. So I haven't read this theory, nor have I seen anybody talking about it, but based on what you said here, I strongly agree. A lot of people like to say, well, Sanji doesn't hit women because it's so deeply ingrained in him as a person, or maybe from his past trauma with the Vinsmokes. That's not true. Again, we see Sanji on the Baratie. After all of this, he's perfectly fine with hitting women. Everything centers around Zeff. Sanji does this because of his respect for Zeff. I really love how you phrase this, that it's about family and it's about having a father. Sanji didn't have a father growing up, which makes Zeff all the more important, which means that everything Zeff says and teaches him is more important than anything to Sanji. Sanji wants nothing more than to pay back Zeff for everything Zeff provided to him. But in the process of this, he's taken this a bit too far, and even Zeff would agree. Let's not talk about chivalry for a moment. Back in the Baratie, Sanji was like, well, I can't let the Baratie be destroyed. I would die first. And Zeph is over there thinking to himself, you're an idiot. You dying is the thing that I want least. I almost think that Sanji fears that Zeph would lose respect in Sanji, that he might lose Zeph's love if he hits a woman, which I don't believe is true. Or if Sanji is in any way responsible for Zeph losing the things that are most precious to him, like the Baratie. And even going back to earlier in One Piece when Sanji was fighting Khalifa, Sanji wanted to hit Khalifa. That is what he actually wanted to do, and he was surprised to find that he couldn't. He's not doing what he wants to do. He's doing what he thinks that Zeph would want him to do, in my opinion. There's an element in here in which Sanji doesn't fully understand himself. And a core lesson here, which he's learning, but I don't think that he has fully learned yet, is that he needs to value himself higher. Sanji is always doing things that he believes that other people want, but he totally disregards the idea of them wanting what's best for him, which I think might be a self-love thing. Even if Zeph would frown on Sanji fighting a woman, Zeph would still prefer Sanji to fight because Zeph cares about Sanji most. And if Sanji really understood that, I think that he would make a lot of different decisions over the course of the story. Next comment, Sanji's faith in his fellow crewmates was already put to the test during Whole Cake Island when he finally accepts Luffy's help to save his family, after refusing it during the beginning of the arc and breaking ties with them. It's redundant to have this chapter highlight the fact that Sanji is not afraid to call on his friends for help, because we already had that moment, which was far more impactful than the display that we got in this chapter. But here's the thing, in Whole Cake Island, Sanji never asked for help. Luffy demanded that Sanji tell the truth. What is it that Sanji himself really wanted? And Sanji said that he wanted to return back to the crew, and he also wanted to save his quote family. Never once did Sanji ask for help, Luffy just gave it. It would be like saying Sanji asked for Nami's help to fight Khalifa. That never happened, Nami just did it. Just because Luffy helped Sanji didn't mean that Sanji asked for it. Luffy simply proved that Sanji's number one solution of having Luffy leave was never going to happen. And that's the difference, and it is a major difference. And finally, we have the last comment. Sanji calling for help was the lesson he learned from Whole Cake. He learned to rely on his friends more instead of taking the burden on by himself. So this is an extension of the last comment, something that I said in my first reaction and I absolutely agree with, but with a little bit of a caveat. To me, this felt like more of a lesson that he learned from Enies Lobby rather than Whole Cake, because I think that those two situations are different. Basically, guys, I really do believe that Sanji believes that Robin is capable of defeating Black Maria. That's a fight that he knows that she can win. So even if he asks for help and she comes here, he doesn't believe that she's going to be killed or captured. Whole Cake Island is a different beast entirely, because I think that it would take a long time to explain, but essentially I think the reason why Sanji didn't ask for the Strat's help is because he didn't think that they could deal with two Yonko. I think that he thought just the same as Zoro. So essentially where he thinks that Robin is going to defeat Black Maria, he didn't think that the crew would defeat Big Mom, and then potentially Big Mom and Kaido. Sanji doesn't want to burden people, and this is true about him. So this is a little victory here, because he's burdening Robin with what might have been his responsibility, but he thinks that she can handle it. So I think that we need further growth from Sanji so that he embraces this even more. Allow the people that he loves to really put their lives on the line for him, even when Sanji himself believes that they're going to die. Because what he needs to understand is that his friends care about what Sanji needs and what Sanji wants. Because Sanji wants them, they become equally important to everybody else, no matter the stakes or the cost. This is one of those things that I feel like a lot of people take for granted about Luffy. Luffy demands this of his crew. Luffy's dreams end up creating these situations for everybody, which they could potentially lead to their death, and Luffy sort of embraces this burden. If you don't want to be here, you can always leave. And that's kind of Luffy's privilege as the captain. But because Luffy wants to be king of the pirates, and everybody has something to gain, they accept that burden. Right now, Sanji could never do this. We've taken a step, but we're not at the finish line. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much all I had to say today. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video, subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.